record feature here so that you can share this out with anybody who was not able to attend today. So I want to just start by saying, again, thank you so much for your time today and also for your commitment to the Support for Improvement workshops. Just as a reminder, they are February 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. The 4th is in Ogallala. The 5th is in Kearney. The 6th is in La Vista, and the 7th is in Wakefield. And they're all at our ESUs in those cities. So we're so excited and thankful for the ESU partnership. And I think you all know me, but I'm Lane Carr. I'm the Director of Accountability in AQuest, and have been providing some support around the classification.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Shirley Vargas. I'm the Student Achievement Coordinator, and I know some of you, but not all of you, and I'm hoping to get to know each of you much better.
Yeah, and so what we wanted to do is just spend a little time to walk you through what these workshops are going to be, what they're for, and then what role that you'll play. So we'll talk a little bit about the different pieces within there, but let's just start by backing up just for a minute about what these Support for Improvement workshops are for and where they came from. So in September, Diane Steamer, the Director of Federal Programs, or Office Administrator for Federal Programs, brought together a group of people to consider the Support for Improvement grant application. And during that time, we asked these people, we said, where do you need support? Where do you need assistance? And these people included district leaders, school leaders, and many people who had just gone through or are currently going through the school improvement grant process. What they really told us was that they need help, our schools need help bridging from the needs assessment to a plan for action and for an application for additional funds. So that's really where we see these workshops playing out. So our schools currently have a comprehensive needs assessment. And we'll be following up with an email to you all that just kind of summarizes what you've heard and also provides you with some of these resources. So the schools are working through this comprehensive needs assessment to help dig through and expose some of the areas of strength as well as areas of opportunity.
Which are aligned to them.
Yeah, and those are all aligned to our 6 tenets of AQuest that you'll see here as you dig in when we follow up with you. So after they complete these needs assessments and during these workshops, we're going to dig a little bit deeper and help connect them with strategies. And that's kind of what we'll go into here. Ultimately, it leads to the Support for Improvement Fund application for funds. So all schools are required to do a plan for improvement, okay, a plan for improvement. And with that, then it is also simultaneously a request for funding, okay, an application for funding. And that's supported by Title I set-aside dollars. So with that, we just thought we would jump in and talk directly about the days and what that's going to look like. And I want to show you my screen here. Make sure that we can see this. Okay. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Perfect. And you should see this needs assessment. Okay. Stellar. So this is the tool that we'll be sending to you. It explains how our schools are going through this process, what we're wanting them to do and find through the process. It has our actual questions included here. It's a rubric style. And then what I think is really, really cool is that at the end, it provides some really cool graphics on where are the areas of focus for our schools. And I already know that many of you are engaging in these needs assessments with your schools, and I'm very thankful that you would start down that path with them. Awesome. So I'm going to turn it over to Shirley to talk just a little bit about kind of how we're approaching these workshops.
Yeah, so we all know that we have a variety of different problem-solving approaches to supporting our schools to not only get really clear on what they're trying to solve, but also getting to the root of what's causing that problem, and then creating goals and aligning those goals to the appropriate strategies to address those root causes. And what we've been, kind of the document or the tool rather that's been supporting the foundation for how the workshops will go is using this problem-solving approach to designing and implementing a strategy to improve performance. Now, this comes out of the Public Education Leadership Project, also known as PEL, which is from Harvard University, and their whole focus is around developing and maintaining coherence and understanding the interdependence of different elements that go into creating really great schools and really great school systems. And I know that a lot of our schools have used Victoria Bernhardt's work, some other schools maybe using other problem-solving approaches. I know MTSS is in and of itself is a problem-solving approach process. So it's not about adding yet another thing on top of what schools are doing, but rather this is the focus that we have for how we've designed the session, and just ensuring that we're having the same language around when we're talking about identifying a problem, engaging in a root cause analysis, which I think is so critical for our schools to truly understand what is actually causing the problem that they're seeing, and then they're therefore aligning themselves with the appropriate strategies. All too often, we think there's a problem and we put a strategy in place and then don't see the outcome we expect because there's a mismatch between those two things. Additionally, one of the other things that I think is super critical about this problem-solving approach is developing a theory of action. Many of you may know this already. Developing a theory of action is just if-then statements that basically are a hypothesis. If we do a set of strategies, we'll reach this desired result. And that in and of itself could be a whole day. And we know that this may be somewhat overwhelming for some of our folks, but I think it's important to also just lead with that, lead with knowing that this will be a bit much, but we're also doing things differently. So a shift in the mindset is going to be really critical in supporting our schools and school teams and ourselves as we continue to develop as leaders in this work, around just getting really clear around what is it that we're trying to do and for what purpose. So this sets the foundation for what we for how we've designed our session. And I know that Lane is going to talk to you all about now how some of these pieces fit into the agenda for the day, for the session, for each session that we'll have.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Shirley. And thank you for bringing this, I think, to our attention, because one of the things that we are really trying to do with these workshops is ensure that schools aren't jumping directly to a solution without fully understanding the problem. And just to kind of underscore, this is such an opportunity for us. And that's why I'm really excited to have such an outpouring of support from our schools, from you all, from N2E staff. We have a great showing of support for these schools. And it's such a new type, a new version of school improvement where the schools have a lot of ownership and autonomy. So we want to make sure that they're empowered to have this and understand or begin to understand and develop an understanding of this process.
And our schools will be receiving this document as well. So they're getting like a pre-work email that will have this information along with the agenda and some other just logistical information, because we also know like the pre-work, even before coming to the table during each of those sessions, it'll be important for them to have a frame of what only is expected, but also like, what are some intended outcomes for this session. So just
and we'll also again be following up with you and send you this framework as well.
For sure.
Excellent. So I want to just spend a little bit of time going through the agenda and the objectives for the day. So again, our 4 convenings are really meant to do these things. The first is just provide our schools some capacity building and support. So, okay. Thanks. So providing them support and learning in the support for improvement process. We want to make sure that we're supporting them in their development of knowledge, skills, and mindsets to make change in their schools and to really affect change in their schools. We are wanting to draw connections between equity. We've put a huge emphasis on equity and educational equity, and what does that mean, and trying to tease that out. And we want to make a direct correlation, a direct connection from equity to school improvement, and really focus that is the reason that our schools and their school leaders are here together, is to make change for students in an equitable way. And that's championing again. And then the last piece is we think it's so important. One of the things that our SIG schools mentioned to us is the value of networks of improvement. So this is a huge opportunity to learn from other school leaders, learn from other teachers what's going on. A lot of our schools are somewhat isolated or feel somewhat isolated, so we want to make sure we provide, enough time for those connections. So again, drawing back to the problem-solving approach that Shirley just talked about, that's basically what our day looks like. And we'll be sending you access to this agenda as well. I'm sorry. Should have muted that. Hopefully that's not one of you all calling me, right? All right, so just a little bit about, because I just ignored it, and that's embarrassing. So, okay, so we'll start off our day with just a light breakfast and welcome, kind of centering ourselves around the work with norms as well. We're going to be, most of the time is going to be spent at table conversations, during table conversations. And so we want to make sure that we have people, knowing each other, feeling comfortable with their table, understanding who the ESU people are. So our start time will actually be at 8:30. Yep, 8:30. So I see that was a great catch on the chat. So 8:30 is when the welcome actually starts. Light breakfast from 8 to 8:30, norms, introductions, etc. Our first step is really digging into that needs assessment. So our schools are completing the needs assessments as we speak. And we want to just go in, dig in, prompt them a little bit more, see the evidence that they have for that, and ultimately kind of zoom in or focus in on one of those student-centered or learner-centered problems. So our students can't do whatever our students struggle with or our students are performing at, right? We really want it to be about the students and where they are during this time. And we want to spend a lot of time on that. We're spending an hour and 15 minutes on just digging into that needs assessment. Our folks around the table, including you, are going to be prompting, guiding, pushing, and challenging our schools to just dig in a little bit more, teasing out some meaning and asking difficult questions. Anything to add about that, Shirley?
No.
Okay, stellar. So the next piece is this beginning of a theory of action. And with all of this, folks, we know that this PELP process is really a multi-day process. But what we're hoping to do is start the conversation. So we're going to spend about an hour thinking about a theory of action. That's a statement of belief. What do we believe is true for our kids and true about our teaching, and how do we achieve that? And if-then statements, as Shirley talked about. So if we do X, we believe Y will occur, right? So this is really like a hypothesis about what do we believe could start to solve some of the problems.
I think one thing I'll add here too is that it's not just about us being the presenters at the front of the room and then having conversations at the table. It's also providing an opportunity for school teams to give each other feedback, to give one another feedback and engage in collaborative conversations that way. So in this segment, and I think in every subsequent segment, there will be opportunities for school teams to sit with another school team and engage in that collaborative conversation around providing feedback, if it's clear, if it's connected, whatever the case is. Each section will have particular feedback parameters, but that's the critical piece that we want to make sure we highlight.
Absolutely, thanks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so once we've kind of looked at one of the problems and we've started to make some hypotheses around how we could solve that around our theory of action, the next step is to do a root cause analysis. So we're going to, again, key in and focus in on that one or two problems that are identified from the needs assessment that we think could be addressed through this theory of action. And we're going to say, why is that a problem? What is the root cause of that? And so again, we have a couple of different tools, including a fishbone diagram and a 5 whys protocol, where basically we just say, why? Why is that problem a problem? Okay, why is that? Why? Until we get down to a point where we can't ask why anymore. We want to make sure that this is also focused and centered on things that are in the school's control. I think that's really key is, as we start to talk about things, for example, chronic absenteeism, there are many things that are outside of a school's control. There are also a lot of things that are within a school's control. So we want to zero in on those things that are best, best focused on what a school can do. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So already we're at a lot. This is a ton of work. It's a high cognitive load. We understand that. We know that we're not going to walk away having all of the answers. We're just providing some supports through that. And so we wanted a little bit of an opportunity for a brain break while still being productive over lunch. So we actually have purchased all of our schools these books called Building Equity, Policies and Practices to Empower All Learners. We certainly know we're not going to be able to do a book study, a full book study or anything here, but we're just going to do a little bit of an introduction and then engage in an equity audit, which is at the back and asks us several questions to dig deeper. And I think that makes sense to follow up with our root cause with this equity audit that asks us, are we doing these things, again, through the lens of equity? Go ahead. Yep.
So all participants, our ESU and NDE people will have access to the facilitator guide, and we have specific directions for each of those things. So that may also in itself, when I hear equity audit, might be like, oh my gosh, there may be a lot or whatever the case is, but it's broken up into particular areas, and you'll engage more deeply in that once you receive the facilitator guide after this Zoom call, and you can dig deeper into that so you can see exactly what we mean. So just a small segment and engaging in the schools in that conversation, but also knowing that this is the beginning and people are on different journeys. So knowing that I can't underscore that enough, we're not going to get all the answers today in that one-day session, but at the very least starting the conversation and knowing who to communicate with after will be critical.
Yep, thanks. So the last part of the day, the 1 to 3 o'clock basically, is planning time. So what we are going to do, there are a few things that we have to let schools know about during this point. And one of those is the ESSA evidence levels. And so we actually will send that out with this as well, so that you can start looking at that and understanding that a little bit deeper. So one of the new parts of ESSA is that to fund projects, to fund interventions, there has to be an emphasis on evidence. And we say evidence-based now and not research-based. And that seems like semantics, but is actually very important. And ESSA tells us what those evidence levels are, the strongly supported research around randomized control trials and things like that that show effect sizes for students. This works for kids, right? Or it worked in these situations. And that's what we're asking here, is to develop an understanding of the evidence levels so that schools understand, hey, when we do this, it can't just be a willy-nilly off-the-shelf thing. We have to show that this has worked someplace else. And so for just the spirit of the law and the spirit of making sure that these things are valuable for our kids, we are spending a little bit of time on that. We're also going to then share some resources. So we'll be sharing the What Works Clearinghouse. We'll be sharing the Nebraska Materials Matter site, and we'll be sharing and walking through a little bit the Evidence for ESSA website, which all dig in a little bit deeper to this idea of evidence-based interventions and supports and curriculum for our schools. And then after we do that, we're going to have a lot of time for just some table discussion to really start thinking about, okay, here's the problem. Here's what we think is going to happen, and here are the subset components, the activities that go along with that. Yeah. And we're leaving a little bit of flex time at the end with that 30 minutes. If schools want to continue to go deeper, connect it directly to their support for improvement application, they can do that. But in general, it's going to be a lot of the day is just time at the tables to understand and digest the problems and the opportunities that are facing our schools. And so Shirley, do you want to talk a little bit about what the table time is going to look like and what we might want from our ESUs?
Yeah, so we have our NDE folks who will be assigned to tables and will be serving as the lead facilitator. So they'll be the ones that are just ensuring that the conversation's on track, asking questions, making sure we're on pace and all that stuff. And we want to ensure that as our ESU partners, that you also have the same information that our facilitators are going to have, that you also know everything about that. So that's why we're sharing that facilitator guide with you, but know that there'll be a lead facilitator at each table. And we really want you to be engaging with the school and really talking about the supports that you can or have been providing, talking about how you can create other opportunities with the school, things that you already have been doing. But now that we're in a central location convening for this particular opportunity around this support for improvement plan, and how then you can also support that implementation of that plan over time, right? Because the plan is from now until 2021. So I just wanted to make sure that that little caveat is the key, that it's not just creating a plan for the next 3 months until the end of the school year. That's actually creating like a 3-year plan, so to speak, and then supporting them to make sense of how that plan then supports their CIP, supports any other like accreditation visit they've had, or anything else that they have going on in their school. So they're building on strengths and things that are working at their school, but then also using this as an opportunity to kind of check the pulse and see what things can be revamped or revised to ensure that they're keeping students at the center, to ensure success at the end of this process.
And as we mentioned, we know that there are multiple student-centered problems occurring in a school. Our goal here is to really go into one deep. So we're gonna pick that student-centered problem that is most at the forefront of our school's minds, that is most exposed through a needs assessment. Mm-hmm. We're gonna dig in with that root cause analysis and theory of action, and then we're gonna start to connect the dots on some of the solutions or potential solutions for that. So our schools are gonna have to go through this process a couple times. And so that's another place that we just really think you could support, is helping schools continue the conversation, continue to dig deep through a root cause, continue to connect the dots to solutions, and really digging into these evidence levels as well. Mm-hmm. So again, just to kind of wrap up, and then we'll leave some time for questions, we'll be sending you the comprehensive needs assessment, and so that you can see what our schools are engaging with. We are asking our schools to submit those by Monday to us, right? Monday. And so I've already started to get some of those, and we're finding some fascinating pieces, some fascinating nuggets of information. Go ahead.
No, yeah. We're gonna share.
Yeah, and we'll share those out with you when we know the table arrangements and which tables you'll be at. We'll also share this agenda and the facilitator's guide, so you can see what's going to be going on kind of behind the scenes. And we'll share these as ESSA evidence levels with you as well. That will be, and the PELP is our last piece.
Yeah.
So with that, I am going to, I'll leave my screen on share, and I'm going to go here. I'm not going to unmute all, but I think that you all can unmute yourselves. So if you have a question, maybe just let us know who you are, and then we'll try to answer your question.
Hey, Lane.
Hi.
Hi, this is Michelle in Scottsbluff.
Hey, Michelle.
Actually, I'm literally in Chadron, but you know.
Ah.
Can we use those needs assessment with other buildings? Or do you want those just for the CSI schools right now?
So it's a great question, and I'm really glad that you asked it. So here's the thing. We actually have a much larger needs assessment. It's 60 items. And that was put together after thoughtful review for like 6 months of work with our regional education laboratory, digging in and researching and all of these things. And we have a 60-item needs assessment that is literally comprehensive. But we said, man, that's too much. It is just way too much, and we need to get it down to 21, or get it down to even fewer for our CSI schools. So I'm saying all of these things to let you know that there's actually a larger conversation happening about how we can make these tools available to more schools. And we're just debating on whether or not to look at the 60-item one or the 21-item one. And so I would love follow up with you. If you'll shoot me an email and say that you're interested in having this conversation, you kind of just got yourself into something. But this is great. Because we would love to pilot this with our needs improvement schools. And we're also really starting to think about, well, a lot of these, our needs assessment is really pulled from the EDA. And so what do we need to be doing both? Is there a way that these can be combined better, right? So many questions about how we can use this needs assessment better. And we just need some guinea pigs to go for it. So super excited to hear that you're maybe interested.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions?
This is Denise O'Brien and team here at ESU 10 and Dan Schnoes from ESU 3. We are questioning, are we going to get copies of that book, or is that something we should purchase so we're prepared to have that conversation?
Yeah, so we do not have copies for our ESU partners. So they were distributed to some of the members of the ELLC. So some folks I think should have them. But we can also send the ISBN number with that.
And we can send, and we'll send the equity audit, which is a PDF. You need like a password, but we can send that too. At the very least, you can look at that in the meantime, but yeah.
There's some really, really good stuff in here, and including just how to even have these conversations at a school level about equity and what it means on the ground. So we'll send out that ISBN and the equity audit so that you can dig into that a little bit more, okay? Thanks, Denise, for asking that. Other questions?
We have a few questions here.
Okay.
Security issue on lane from Bill and Rhonda.
Hi guys, thanks for the information. First question is, so what time does this actually start? Because your agenda says 8 to 9 welcome and norms. Does that mean we're going to drink coffee and have norms for actually starting at 9, or what's the plan?
Yeah, sorry, that's not clear. We'll clear that up. So we're going to go 8 to 8:30 for the lightish breakfast, people rolling in. And we'll actually start with a welcome, norms, etc., introductions at our tables, and icebreakers at our tables at 8:30. So we'll make that change.
Yeah.
We'll make that change. Yeah. So 8:30.
Another question we have is, what if our district doesn't get their needs assessment to you on Monday? Are you following up with them to make sure that they have it done? You will. And then you said you would. Oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry, Rhonda. I'm sorry, finish up. Sorry.
And then you said you would send us whatever table we're going to be at, our needs assessments, so that we have reviewed it before our schools show up. So will you just send all of ours to Bill, and because we're going to want to see all of them, whether we're at the table or not.
Glad to.
Okay. Thank you.
So we will send a pre-work email to all the schools, their superintendents and the principals. So in that will be a reminder to those schools, but then I think we can also individualize it to the schools that have not submitted it yet. So that way we make sure we get on top of that.
Rhonda, you guys ditto for ESU 10. We'd like both of our schools. Dr. Wheelock, thank you.
We can do that. Like we said, we're getting them rolling in, and so we can package those together and send those to you all for sure. Any other questions?
What about priority school, Lane? So we have a priority school that's part of this, but they have to complete the needs assessment as well. And then how does that change their priority plan when they already have a very large, complex plan that they're working on? Does this mean they're going to be doing something different? Or, because they're asking me, does this mean that they're going to change direction? Or are they even needing to be there? I mean, there's just a lot of questions with the party school. That maybe is probably different for just a couple of people, but.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bill. Russ and I have gone up and spoken specifically to Santee, but I think with anything else, it's about how we build on strength and things that are currently in place that are not going to completely disrupt or do like a whole 180. But it's also time to assess whether or not the things we have in place are actually going to yield the results that we want and that we're looking for. So it's a great opportunity for Santee to still engage, and any school, still engage in that needs assessment, to think about how are the things that we're doing truly going to move the needle for our kids. And specifically in that case, knowing that for some of our schools, it was clear around graduation rates, it was clear around things that got a school, and I'm sorry to use that language, but that identified a school as needing support for improvement. I think that is going to be more of a conversation that we can have at a more individualized level that can make more of these sessions even more unique for each school. So I think that's a great point, but
Yeah.
I don't want it to seem like it's yet one other thing, but a time to kind of find points of convergence and make things more clear and coherent.
That's right. And one of the things, just to add on to that, so again, Santee is unique in this discussion, right? But we're very conscious of several of these schools just went through a frameworks or advanced ed visit. And we don't want it to be just completely divergent change of direction. We need it to build. But as Shirley said, again, having it so that we're strategic and saying, did this work or is this working? It's a good check after 2 years in the 5-year cycle. So we'll also have all of the districts' school improvement plans at the tables as well, so that we can dig in and say, oh, this is what maybe we should be looking at here, or this is how it aligns here, etc.
Can also encourage your schools to think about what type of data they want to bring to the table for the day of the convening. So maybe they want to ensure that, yeah, we'll have hard copies, or maybe there's something they have, like some progress monitoring tool that they're using, or they have like their latest like dibbles or like map data, just any type of data that they think that might be important to help them make those types of conversations even more richer at the table would be good to have.
Yeah. Other questions?
And Shirley, this is Denise again. Just wanted to clarify. So what I'm hearing is that Luke County, our priority school, will have to do another needs assessment. Is that what I just heard?
No, since they're not a CSI, then they're out of this conversation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah, no. Sorry about that.
No problem. All right. Any other question?
One more question, Lane, or at least one more. Are these grants that they're going to be able to work on, can this be a consortium grant?
No.
Or is this individual schools?
Diane is in the room as well, and she says that they cannot be consortia grants. They cannot.
Okay. We have several of our schools that are on the list that are all working on.
Each school submits their own. I'm sorry, Bill.
I was just going to say, we have several of the groups that we're working with that are doing things that are very similar. So they were asking that question of whether or not they move down that path. If the needs assessment says that they have similar needs, if they could share resources. But you're saying they have to submit individually.
That's right.
Okay.
The school submits, and that's, I think, a really important point, actually, just to point out, is that we are, every school must submit a plan, okay, for improvement. And that plan just so happens to also be their application for funding to support the plan, okay? So whether a school gets that money or not, they still have to have the plan, okay? So it's just very important that we say, like, plan, and then we will fund your plan, maybe, right? Like, or partially, or all, whatever the case may be. It's just really important that it's about the plan. We care the most about the plan. So.
Hi, Lane. This is Melissa from Omaha. I know that you had talked a little bit about they should bring data, anything else that they're working on. Do they also need to bring their comprehensive needs assessment, or will you be providing them a packet of information that will have that when they come?
We'll have that. We'll just plan on bringing it. Just save them from having to print and things. So we'll just plan on having it. Yep.
Another question I had from some schools that I talked with this week is they asked if they write this plan and then they do not receive any additional funding, is it expected that they carry the plan out?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So again, it's about the plan for improvement and the steps that they're going to take. Now, the reason that we're making it competitive, Bill, is that it's like a competitive style grant, is because we didn't want to make it formula where every school got the same amount of money. Now, with that, we anticipate that every school will get money. If they create a strong plan and show the need for those resources, for those strategies and things like that, we'll give them the money. We have enough money that if every school got an equal amount, it would be about $200,000-ish. And so we want to just make sure that the schools that show us that they have the greatest need and the most well thought out plans, that's why it's critical for us to build and help our schools build good plans. There are some states that are doing the same thing like we are with a competitive grant, and they're actually denying schools. They're saying, no, this plan is not good enough. Go back and look at X, Y, and Z pieces. And so that's, we're not going to like say this sucks. We're just going to go in and say, hey, look, these are areas, these are places that we think that they could improve before we fund that completely. But yes, they have to grow, they have to show progress regardless of the funding that is attached.
I don't. I mean, what happens if a district says, you know what, ND, we've got enough going on. We think we're okay. I'm just asking that question. So what happens if they say no protect?
So there is and I'm glad I have the two experts in the room with me, but there is a portion in the plan that says if they anticipate that goal to be supported with support for improvement funds or not. So it's possible, Bill, that you may have a school that is doing things they're doing all this thing, and they write an awesome plan, and maybe they don't need quote unquote the funding, right? That may be something that they can choose to do, but know that they're expected to live out that plan, and that they'll be having monitoring conversations with some of our people here around how they're making progress towards meeting those goals in that plan.
Yeah. And they have to have a plan. They have to do a plan now that they've been identified. So whether they want to request additional support funds is totally up to them. But they must do a plan. And then in our ESSA plan, we have written in what happens next if a school does not move out of CSI status. And so that's just like always continuing to think about like the next steps. We want to make sure that there's a sense of urgency and understanding around the autonomy that schools have here. But again, using other funds, we already had a great conversation with LPS about some of the things that they want to do with their schools and how they want to support with additional funds from other places, and then add on these support for improvement funds as specific targeted things. So I'm just really excited about we're already seeing innovation. And again, I just really hope our schools, and it sounds like we've had a lot of good conversations with our schools. This is an opportunity to do what they need and to get a little bit extra assistance. But I mean, it's totally up to them if they don't want to say or ask for extra money, definitely.
And I haven't really seen anything anywhere. It doesn't mean that it's not posted, but is there a targeted amount? You said like 200,000 if it was split equally. But if I want to apply for 400,000 or 500,000, it does not matter. There's not like a limit, a minimum or a maximum that I have to target.
That's right. That's right. It's based on the need that is shown through the application. So again, in the application, we say, tell us what you found in your needs assessment, tell us what you found in these workshops. And if you show us that need and illustrate that $400,000 could do that for your school, stellar. Other schools may only need 50,000 or whatever the case may be. And that's, again, one of the advantages to doing a competitive grant like this, is that it's not every school. A school with 60 kids gets the same as a school as 600 kids. So it's really important for us to have that. Yeah.
Lane?
Yep.
I was also going to ask, the day that you met with the CSI schools, wasn't part of the conversation, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when you were talking about filling out that application and submitting it for the funding, that if it were turned in and there were things on there that maybe would get them denied the funding, that NDE would make suggestions for how they could beef up the plan. Could you talk a little bit about how you communicated that to the schools?
Yeah, you actually kind of said it already, Dallas, is that once those are submitted to us, we're going to kind of look at them on a rolling basis or a review and just look at them, flag areas of concern or areas of strength, and be able to give that feedback to the schools, so that they are presenting the best plan, right? That's, again, underscoring that it's about the plan, and B, that they're tying their plan to the funding requests that they're making. I mean, if we're not seeing that, or if we're seeing any issues, then we'll return it and coach them through again, and provide that support and feedback. Yep.
Thank you.
Good questions.
Lane, one other question here from us, just asking, so we know now that our CSI schools are going to be with that action plan for 3 years till 2021. Will you be identifying new CSI schools, additional CSI schools next fall?
Not until 2021. So we are on a 3-year cycle of identification for CSI. Targeted support and improvement begins next year. And then those will ultimately, or could ultimately, lead to CSIs. And then we'll be a little bit off on the cycle, but we won't do any CSIs until 2021. There's a meeting going on right next door, and I think it's our FFA folks, and one of their advisors has a baby. So I don't know if you just heard the baby cooing right next door, but we were like, hello? What's happening?
Dan, go ahead with your question.
Lane, our question was, do you anticipate us doing a meeting of this style in a year or two, and every year, just to bring the CSI schools together in the regions?
I think it's an excellent idea, Dan. Actually, I would love to do that. And we've talked about one of the things that our SIG schools really mentioned that they actually appreciate are the monthly check-ins. And so I think having check-ins with our CSI schools often is a great idea. And then reconvening these groups, this kind of group in the workshop style, to just check in and make some adjustments if needed to their plans. Definitely. I love the idea. And I would add too, Dan, that I think we also need to all start thinking about targeted support and improvement and that student group performance and how that's going to affect our schools. We could have hundreds of targeted support and improvement schools, okay? And so we're in the process of running that right now so that we can get a glimpse of where they're located around the state. But it's so important that we, again, think through how are we providing supports for these schools with student groups that aren't performing very well, okay? And that gets to that equity piece once again. So I love the idea. I think in a year or even 6 months or next fall, I think it would make sense for us to check in again, definitely.
And I have 2 more questions. The first one is, when will we receive the summary and information from today's webinar so we can get it to our schools? And then 2, when will we know, or when is the predicted delivery of information to let us know who the TSI schools are so we can be proactive?
Yeah, so first question, Melissa, is a little bit different for you all. So we're going to get you this information to the people who are attending, actually to the people who we have down as attending for this 4 sessions. And so that is I want that to stay close because I want that to be for us as supporters and leaders of the tables. On Monday, we're going to be following up specifically with the schools about what they can expect, including this kind of agenda, some very light pre-work, and basically just some logistics and an understanding for that. And so for that email that will go to the schools on Monday, we'll send that to you, Melissa, and you can get that. If that's what you would like, we can have you distribute that to the schools. We're just trying to keep a little bit of separation between what our schools are hearing, because we want them to be informed and feel empowered and ready. But we also, I don't think we need them. Yeah, I don't want them to be overwhelmed. And at this point, I want them to be really focused on that needs assessment and getting that to us by Monday.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then when do you think you'll let?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, targeted support and improvement. So Max, our amazing data angel here at NDE, is currently working on that. So it's fascinating because our AQuest system has never dug into student group performance. Okay, so that's fascinating in and of itself. So what we have to do is we go school by school and pull out all 10 of the student groups, and that takes a little bit of time. So long story short, I think that we're going to have an unofficial list. Like if we were to have run TSI, I'm guessing by early March, late February, early March. The actual TSI list for the 2018-19 school year won't happen until the fall when we do classifications. So we want to give schools a little bit of like pre-warning about that and an explanation of what that is. And then the official one won't happen until the fall.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, you can expect a follow-up from us within the next probably hour or so. We'll include this video so that you can distribute that to your folks who were not in attendance but will be in attendance at our workshops. We'll follow up with the pieces that we gave you. And then if you have any other questions, just reach out to Shirley or I or Diane throughout any of this process. And we're just, again, thankful for your partnership in this. Okay.
Lane,
With that.
can I ask a question real quick?
Oh,
Yep.
just kidding.
On your TSI statement, you said the TSI schools will probably know next fall. Is that based on 17-18 data?
It'll be based on 18-19 data. Yep. Just like our excellent, great, good, and needs improvement classifications. That happens every year now, Bill. And so it'll be based on that 18-19 data.
Okay, I was just checking since you said you're working on it right now. I didn't know if you had your 18-19 data.
No, the one that we're working on right now is just that unofficial, and that will be 17-18 data. Yeah.
Okay. Right,
Yep.
because there is no TSI schools for this year. Those are
That's right.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great questions. All right. Excellent, everybody. Thank you very much.